Ladies and gentlemen, Ed Tate.
Hey, nigger! Go back to the ghetto. These are the words that used to greet me every day on the playground when I was 7 years old. They are the words of my first bully. His name was Richard. Now me, I had another name for him. But this is a family program, and we're not going to go there. One day, Richard is swinging upside down on the monkey bars. He's going back and forth, back and forth. His face is coming this close to mine. He's calling me a series of names. I'm reminded of one of my favorite quotes. It's by Pat Riley, who is the former head basketball coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. He is the current basketball coach of the world champion Miami Heat. It is wisdom given to him by his father in the book, The Leader Within. And he told his son, he said, son, every now and then, your back is against the wall. You must plant your feet and make a point about who you are and what you're about. And when that time comes, you simply do it. Well, on this particular occasion, when Richard, he swung this way, well, I swung that way, and pow, I did it. And he dropped faster than some of my stock picks. I was grounded for a month. But when I returned to that playground, none of those kids ever called me any of those names again. And I learned my first lesson when it comes to dealing with bullies. You must take a stand. You see, overconfidence leads to arrogance, and arrogance eventually will be punished. My second bully was a guy by the name of Bruce. Bruce was a senior in high school. He was 17 years old, and he was stocky. I was in 7th grade. I weighed 75 pounds. I was skinny. One day we're playing American football. We have on full body armor, cleats, pads, and helmets. Bruce comes around and he's bragging about how savvy he was with the ladies. Until I pointed out two things. Number one, I've never seen you with a woman. And number two, why do you hang out with 12-year-olds? And everyone laughed. Except for Bruce. And he said, I'm going to kick your behind. That's not what he really said. And at first I was scared. But then I noticed something. He's wearing a leather jacket. I'm wearing football pads. He's wearing a baseball cap. I'm wearing a football helmet. If I'm going to get into a fight, today is a day. So I planted my feet, and when the time came, pow, I did it. Now, wouldn't it be a great ending to the story if I told you I won that fight? That did not happen. That man beat the daylights out of me. But I learned something very important that day. You see, I got my self-respect and my dignity. And after that day, Bruce never bothered me or my friends ever again. And I learned my second lesson when it comes to dealing with bullies. Do not let fear paralyze you. You see, bullies, they depend on their silent partner in crime, your fear. There's a woman by the name of Dr. Susan Jeffers. She wrote a book several years ago. It was entitled, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Sometimes we just have to feel the fear and do it anyway. Lesson number 2 when it comes to dealing with bullies, do not let fear paralyze you. I would need both of these lessons. Number 1, take a stand. Number 2, do not let fear paralyze me when it came to dealing with my third bully. I met him when I was a sophomore at the University of Illinois. I was a disc jockey on a student-run radio station. I worked a graveyard shift from 12 a.m. until 3 a.m. And the tradition at the school was that the seniors, the upperclassmen, they had their choice of the best available time slots. But my ratings were so high, I was the first underclassman who was ever allowed to go prime time. Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. until 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. I was so excited. I told all my friends, I told all my family, I told any woman who would listen. I was so happy and excited until I met that senior who I had bypassed. His name was Ron. Ron was 6'5", 300 pounds, 2% body fat. He was a starting tight end on the Fighting Illini football team. Plus, he was a bodybuilder. He cornered me, and he said, "You got my job. And if you know what's good for you, you'll quit. But let's make it look good. Don't quit right away. I'll come back in a week for your answer." Have you ever been so scared you couldn't sleep at night? Have you ever been so scared you couldn't eat? The following morning, I went to the program director, and she said she couldn't help me. I went to the administration. They said they couldn't help me. I went to the police. They said they couldn't help me. They said it was his word against my word. They would actually have to wait for a crime to be committed in order to take action. And I remember thinking to myself, there's this new thing in law enforcement. It's called crime prevention. Have you heard of it? In case you haven't, I'll be willing to teach you. In fact, I'll be the first person of the crime that you would help to prevent. I went to his coach. He said he couldn't help me. It was at that moment I realized where I had no place to run, no place to hide. That's when I realized that I would have to plant my feet in a different way. True to his word, 1 week later, Ron shows up. In fact, he was about 5 minutes early. Someone tell me what it is about bullies that they're punctual. Does anybody know? He's wearing a t-shirt that is clearly 2 sizes too small. When he is breathing, you can see the muscles in his chest expanding and contracting. And if that wasn't scary enough, he had this big piece of wood in his hand, and he's hitting it in his hand like this. And I remember thinking, I didn't get the memo that we could bring wood. Have you ever been so scared you couldn't stop your hands from shaking? I knew I couldn't let him see me sweat. I put my hands behind me. I planted my feet. And this is what I said. I said, "Ron, I've decided to reject your offer. But before you do anything drastic with that stick, there's a couple things that you need to know. Number one, I'm a resident advisor. And what that means is I'm university staff. Striking me is like striking a professor. It is immediate grounds for dismissal from the school. You could say goodbye to your education. And since you would no longer be a student, you would no longer be eligible for sports. You could say goodbye to your scholarship and athletics. I've taken the time to let the police know where you work and where you practice. You could say goodbye to your newborn daughter, your wife, and your freedom. My family has retained an attorney. We will sue you for everything that you have. If you make it to the NFL, I will get your signing bonus. And by the way, I love your Volkswagen. You can say goodbye to your lifestyle." After that day, Ron never bothered me again. And I learned the greatest lesson when it comes to dealing with bullies, and that is this: violence is not the answer. The greatest weapon you have in terms of solving your problems is your mind. You must take the time to think. You know, our dignity is one of the few things in life that we can say is ours. And if you ever let anybody take that, in the end, you have nothing. You have nothing. And personally, my friends, I'd rather be beaten down than to ever give that up. Every now and then, your back is against the wall. You must plant your feet and make a point about who you are and what you're about. And when that time comes, you simply do it.